This meetup has an amazing reputation, so I'm really, really excited to be here. I'm really glad that the BizSpark program was mentioned because I'm Sue Sinton and I'm a technical evangelist for Microsoft, and part of my job involves actually working with BizSpark partners and startups that we onboard to the system, and I get to show them how to onboard to use all of the really cool Azure services from a technical perspective. So I'm going to be talking about our cognitive services offering today, in case you'd like to get started with it, and I just want to share like some of the really awesome tools you can use if you do decide to use Azure. So let's get started. So Microsoft Cognitive Services started because we wanted to democratize intelligence. And so when you're a small startup, you don't necessarily always have the budget to hire an entire machine learning team, right? And pay all of these developers to create a lot of the really kind of futuristic technology that computers are capable of these days. So we wanted to provide like an easy way for you to actually tap into these kind of really cool machine learning technologies. And so we've created these really easy to use REST APIs. We also have some SDKs that you can use as well. And we've tested all of them and spent many, many years on them, and a lot of our clients are actually using them. So are there any developers in the room right now? A few? Yeah? And which startups have hired developers currently? A few. Awesome. So this is mainly content for non-developers, but I do have a slide for any developers in the audience, or if you want to send that to your developers if they'd like to know more about the technical information. But I think this slide is probably about as technical as it gets. So just to briefly go over the API collection that we have, we split it into several categories. So we have vision, which covers computer vision, emotion, face, and video. We have speech, which does things like custom recognition, speech recognition, and it can also do speech to text. We have language, which does spell checking, text analytics, translating, and things like that. We also have knowledge, which can kind of like link different entities in text, for example, which is really, really clever. And then we also have things like being able to find and explore academic knowledge. We also have the search API, which uses Bing at the heart, and that can be really, really useful when you're trying to like find images. So just to go over it really quickly again, the computer vision API can actually get actionable information from images. So if you give it an image of a cow, it can basically tell you this is a cow standing in a field and the cow is brown and the cow is staring ahead. So that's how much detail you can get from a lot of the computer vision APIs. They're really impressive. You can also run images through the face API, and that can detect that there is somebody in the photo. It can also potentially identify who that person is, and it can also have a look at things like emotion. So if you want to know whether the person is smiling or sad or angry or shocked, you can actually find that information once the API response comes back. And we also do, we have a video API, so if you didn't want to send like single frames from video, you can also just like stream video and it can do that for you as well. So with speech, you can convert speech to text and then back again, which is really cool. So if you want to have things like hands-free navigation, kind of like Cortana or Siri, you can do that kind of thing. We also have speaker recognition API. So just like the face identity, you can actually tell who is speaking, which I think is really impressive. We also have a custom recognition intelligence service, so that can kind of like fine-tune the recognition if it's not quite what you are after. When it comes to language, we have a spell check API, so you don't need to go and reinvent the wheel. You can use basically the same spell checking technology that Microsoft has had in Microsoft Word for decades now, which is pretty cool. We also have a web language model API, so you can kind of train it on like really, really large amounts of data. We have a linguistic analysis API, so you can look at text and find out the language of it. We also have language understanding, so you can teach your apps to understand commands from your users. So the short version of this is called LUIS, the Language Understanding Intelligence Service, and I've actually used this in things like chatbots. So with chatbots, users tend to type commands in lots of different ways. They don't usually say exactly the command that you want them to, and what LUIS can do is it can figure out that fuzzy intent that's hidden in the words, and it can actually forward that intent to you. So it's a lot easier to create chatbots especially, but also other applications where people are typing in free text. And we also have text analytics API, so you can detect sentiment, phrases, topics, and language, and things like that. So you can figure out if somebody is using strongly happy language or very negative language from that. Little caveat, it's not always great at sarcasm, but you can actually still get sentiment out of it if you sort of ignore for that. And knowledge. We have things like you can explore academic papers, journals, and authors with this API, which is pretty cool. We have exploration service, which adds interactive search to like the structured data. You can also do entity linking, so you can kind of like link different contexts together in the text. And also a recommendations API. So again, there are so many different recommendation tools out there, and if you use our recommendation tool, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So again, you have something that Microsoft has tested and trained for a very long time now, so it tends to be a really, really good one. And lastly, we have search. So you can, anything that you can do on Bing, you can do that with an API request. So I won't go over this too slowly. It has a search API, auto-suggest, which again is another thing that you probably don't want to roll your own. Bing image search API, which is fantastic. So if you're trying to find like random images of certain subject matter. A video search API, which is very, very cool. And also Bing news search API as well. So if you're trying to get a lot of different news articles, then that's the API to hit. So I want to share a couple of really quick case studies, and then I promise I'll wrap it up. But there are some really cool ones. So who here knew that Uber is using Microsoft Cognitive Services? Anyone? One person, yeah. So Uber is a particularly impressive one because they ended up implementing the computer vision API. And so when drivers hop into the car and start up the Uber app, the way that Uber verifies that the driver who is registered to be driving like the passengers in their car is actually the person that Uber has already done a background check on. So when they jump into their car, they have to do some face recognition to make sure that that's the verified driver. So that's pretty cool. It keeps Uber passengers a lot more safe. There's also, I can never pronounce their name, but Vidiglo. And so they use the computer vision API to analyze like social media content. So it's not just the text that's in the social media, they're able to use the Cognitive Services Computer Vision API to understand what's actually in the images that people are attaching to, say, tweets, Facebook posts, and things like that. So, previously in the past, people have just done text, but being able to analyze the text and the image at the same time provides so much more context when you're trying to analyze that kind of thing. And last one is Zero Keyboard. So Zero Keyboard created an app where you can essentially use your voice to take notes in their CRM program. And you can take notes, but also take pictures that can go up and analyze the content of that too. So the computer vision API and the speech to text API that they use kind of come together to allow people to take notes on the go in their CRM, which is kind of a killer feature when you think about it, because a lot of people that use CRMs are always on the go and they're not always going to be able to sit next to a computer. So if they're driving to the next client meeting, they can be taking notes, which is pretty cool. So if you do have developers or you are a developer, you can send them this slide. I will share the slides afterwards. And that will kind of get them going so that they can see just how easy it is to start. Again, we have SDKs for languages such as Python and Node.js, as well as like mobile SDKs as well. But if none of those suit your needs, you can absolutely just use our REST API with whatever language of choice you're using, which is pretty cool. So just to recap, Microsoft Cognitive Services are easy, flexible, and they're really great quality. And it's something that we've always wanted the startup community to have, because again, like, there's not a lot of budget to be able to like have an entire machine learning team at your disposal. And so this is our way of trying to share that technology with everybody. So you can actually get started for free. You get a certain amount of calls that you can make to experiment. So definitely jump onto Microsoft.com/cognitive. And especially if you're part of the BizSpark program, like, you're very well set up to be able to use these kind of services as well. So I'm not going to take up any more of your time, but thank you so much for having me.
Any questions
for
Suze before we move on?
what do you use for the knowledge database? What's the resource for the academic knowledge, as you said?
Yeah, so you can put your information into Azure itself, things like databases, or you can just send it like an endpoint for it to harvest that data from.
Okay, so it doesn't have any access to the current databases online or the journals or the papers. They have to give it access to it.
Yes, yeah. If you think about it as if it was a person, it still needs to be able to bypass any systems that you have in place. So you may need to migrate some of your resources if there is a gateway there.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, that was an awesome question.